Hi, welcome back to 12 Step Up. Today we are talking to a special guest, a good friend of mine. He'll tell us a little bit about his experience. As you guys know, this program is for recovery um, from alcohol, drugs, and whatever. That's why we called it 12 Step Up. So, without further ado, Tom,
How are you today?
I'm good. Good. How much sobriety time do you have?
Well, some people might argue the point, but my birthday is November 4th, 1991. So I just went over 31 years.
Congratulations.
And for that, my mom is thankful.
That's right. So are we probably. That's awesome, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome. How did you start your journey into sobriety?
Um, well, without a drunkalog, I'm just a garden variety kid from the suburbs. Uh, I was born in the 50s, so I came up through the 60s and 70s. And some say if you can remember the 60s, you weren't there. But uh, honestly, getting and using alcohol was difficult for a young teenager, and so I drifted into weed and hash and that kind of stuff. It was easier, and it turns out I actually used that more because when I drank, I was completely out of control. So dope was more accessible and easier for me to control.
Isn't that funny? The more illegal the stuff is, the easier it is to get.
Boy, oh boy.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, especially back then.
All
You
right.
bet.
So let's just talk about just how did your drinking and using begin? You don't have to give us a whole
Yeah,
log.
yeah, no, well, first time I really drank, I got into some of my grandmother's homemade brandy, and they found me passed out under the porch a couple hours later.
How old were you?
Uh, Probably 13. And drugs, older brothers and sister, and one of my sister's boyfriends. He had some brownies, and I was riding with the big kids, and just scarfed a bunch of them down. I got out of his van, and they say that my eyes rolled back in my head, and I went down. So that was kind of the start, but
Okay.
it progressed pretty fast. Like we were talking earlier, I was in the military, and so used a lot and dealt a lot. We were overseas and smuggling dope in from South America, that kind of stuff. So I was an entrepreneur at a pretty early age.
Would you say the military kind of catapulted your drinking?
Yeah, well, the military really frowned on dope. They encouraged alcohol use, um, but I was an equal opportunity kind of guy. So but yeah, the military cultivated alcoholism.
So let's fast forward
Okay,
to your worst experience.
there were a few. Well, I'll tell you, the the most dramatic experience was when I actually crossed the line to a first step. And just briefly, I had been dry for a little over a year, kind of around the program, but not doing anything. And I ended up going back out, relapsing for a few days, and they wouldn't let me back in the dope house. I still had money in my pocket, and that was the most demoralizing, humiliating experience that I had. There were fights, car crashes, all kinds of stuff. I mean, that we all go through, but that was the most demoralizing experience that I had.
Yeah, if the dope man won't let you in.
Oh, dude, usually he waited until I was out of money before he threw me out.
Right.
And this time it was before I ran out of money.
That's that's awesome. That's awesome. So let's talk about how you got into the program. Obviously, we don't specify which program, but let's talk about how you came about a 12-step program.
For me, it was the EAP with work. That I was still married, still had a house, a couple of cars in the driveway, but I could see losing all of it. I was right on the cusp of that, and I was using that work, and it was becoming pretty apparent. I mean, everybody knew, and so I just approached the boss, and they sent me to treatment through the insurance. EAP is employee assistance.
Okay.
So it was actually a pretty soft start.
Okay. What did you do? What did you do at the time for a living? What?
Oh, I was on a property management staff running contractors for commercial office buildings.
Okay. So
So
you get into treatment, and then did you stay sober once you got out of treatment
for a year,
for a
a
year?
little over a year, 3 weeks, and 3 days.
And you just decided you needed more research.
Actually, I stubbed my toe. I was in the middle of a divorce. I was losing my house. Uh, and it just all kind of caught up with me because I wasn't in recovery. I was in meetings,
Mm,
but I wasn't in recovery.
right. That'll take you out real
Yeah,
fast.
absolutely.
Okay. So when was it that you actually decided, hey, I'm doing the do? I want the things. I got to do the things to keep the things.
That well, that was at the end of my relapse. 3 days, short time. I was still pretty young and in pretty decent health, but I didn't know it at the time. But I did steps 1, 2, and 3 at that point. And what it was is, if there is a God, help me get this thing, whatever it is. I just was at a place that I had no more good ideas. I had no more angles, uh, and knew that I was a screwed pooch, and I only had one place to turn to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you go through this. What are you doing while you're staying sober? Like, what are you doing for a living?
Kept my job.
Kept your job?
Yeah, yeah. So continued on that property management staff. Uh, and in fact, my boss was super supportive, very cool about it. And where I was at, there was a string of lunch meetings. And so on the west side, they're an hour and a half. Uh, and I would do an hour and a half lunch meeting 4 or 5 days a week, and just work a little extra time at the end of the day. And she was completely cool with it. So I was doing between 7 and 10 meetings a week because I was going 5 days a week at noon, and then I was hitting the evening meetings, more social stuff, but hitting evening meetings at the same time.
So you jumped in pretty
Oh, I was hip deep in it because
okay.
I absolutely knew that that's being on the downstream side of step one.
Yeah.
There was no more question about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't screwing around with it anymore.
And that's very important for anybody listening. When you know, and you just got to do the things. You got to do the things, otherwise, it doesn't work, right?
Yeah,
So
well, you can't unring that bell.
no, right? No, no.
Yep.
So 31 years. What do you? What would you recommend for anybody trying to get into a 12-step program, what would you tell them? I mean, I know because in this program and all the programs, all 12-step programs, you got to want it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and there has to be a belief that I need it.
Right.
I didn't have that my whole first year. Yeah, I thought it was a good idea, but I wasn't going to do what you all were doing.
Right.
Um, if you're asking me what my recommendation would be, what I've discovered along the way is that I will never outthink addiction. I will not be smarter than addiction, and people could save themselves an awful lot of pain and heartache and frustration the sooner they get to that place.
Yes.
And you're either all in or you're not. That that's the bottom line.
That's right.
Yeah, you're either in to do it all or you're not.
Right. So I got sober kind of old school.
Mhm.
Um,
They locked you in a closet.
they didn't do
Not
that.
that old school.
No, they didn't do that. But where I went, there was a 12-step room,
Hmm.
and you sit your ass down and you shut up,
Yeah.
basically, and you just read out of the book and you talk about feelings. And I remember the person that helped me out would say, "Oh, yeah, is that how you feel? Yeah, that's how I feel. I don't give a shit how you feel.
Yeah.
This this is what we're doing."
Yeah. Yeah.
And is that how your program was?
Yeah. Well, there was a string of hard-nosed old guys. My sponsor was one of them, and he was way more concerned about whether I was going to live or die than how I felt.
Yeah.
What I didn't realize at the time is that he was actually very kind, very patient, and tolerant with me.
Yes.
Like I said, I didn't know that at the time. He had spies everywhere.
Yeah.
The stuff that I thought I was getting away with, he knew. He knew what was
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
Uh, very cool guy. He worked with me for just shy of 21 years before he died.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, he, uh, he he was more my dad than my father. And what I mean by that, as a mentor, as somebody that I could actually go to and ask an honest question and get an honest answer. He was 25, 30 years ahead of me chronologically, both time on Earth and time in the program. So he'd pretty much seen it all by then. And he was always very candid with me. At first, I thought he was mean, but turns out he was just direct.
Yeah.
And like I said, he was way more concerned about whether I lived than how I felt or did my feelings get hurt.
How many guys would you say you've helped along your
Me?
journey?
Oh, I don't know. I guess I would probably harmed more than I've helped along the way. But I'm pretty proactive about sponsoring guys.
Mhm.
Um, if you took a poll, there's probably 20 guys that write my name down as a sponsor, but as far as actively working with people, it's probably 4 or 5 guys right now.
And how does that feel?
Um, Fabulous. Uh, and I say that because 30 years. And now understand, 31 years. I was 32 years old when I got here. I'll be 64 in July. So I've just about spent half of my life in the program. And my point being is, I can't remember back with the depth and the weight of what things were like 30 years ago.
Right.
I could tell you about it, I can describe it to you, but I can't really feel it like I did back then. But working with a new guy, man, it transports me right back there when they're licking their wounds and telling me about the old ladies locked me out of the house, or I just got fired, or what have you. That's the real benefit of working with
Yeah.
other guys.
You know, that's the fear that I have, losing that feeling. I've been in the program for a little over 7 years, and I remember coming into this program,
Still fresh.
and it just it I remember the pain, the hurt, the
Yep.
disgust, and isn't it funny? I don't want to get rid of that.
Yeah, well, Jack my first sponsor used to talk about that. He said that we can't store that awareness. We cannot maintain it. And that's why it's imperative that we work with new people.
My first sponsor down in California, told me, "How you feel now? Hold on to it as long as you can,
Yeah.
because with time, it's going to start fading away.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you'll get the reminder every time you work with somebody,
Yeah.
just
Absolutely.
like you described it
Yep.
now."
Yep.
And so, like so today, for example, um, you are here, uh, but you kind of live here and you kind of don't.
Well, that's all changing.
It's all changing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, the reason I keep going back to the West Side is I have a business over there. And as of next Tuesday, it'll be sold. I still retain a percentage of the company, but a couple of guys are taking it over, and solid guys have no concerns about the company's longevity, and that means that I'll be over here considerably more. I might go over once a month after the first of the year.
Okay. That's awesome. So now you have more time to work with others.
Absolutely.
And this 12-step program that you work and I work, um, and that's I guess that's one of the major things, right? Just working with others and giving back what was freely given to us.
Yeah,
So I wanted to talk about your wife. She's also in the program.
she is.
How is that?
It's great. Actually, my first sponsor's wife made a point. I was pretty young in the program. She had described, you better find somebody in the program, somebody that has the same background, the same direction as I do. And that was sound advice. I would tell you that she robbed the cradle. Uh, she's she'll be 43 next month, next week actually.
Your wife?
Yeah, 43 years sober,
Oh,
not 43 years old. So she kind of robbed the cradle.
43 years sober.
Yeah, she was 12 years sober when I showed up.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I think that's first for me. I don't think I've heard that one yet.
really.
Yeah.
Huh? But it's been super beneficial that we speak the same language
Yes.
and we work the same principles, which is helpful.
Do you guys, obviously, my wife is in the program as well. And when we first got married, um, our favorite or most famous lines was like, "You better call your sponsor," or "I suggest you call your sponsor."
Yeah.
Do you guys go through that
I've
now?
learned to keep my mouth shut.
Okay. Okay.
I'll tell you a story offline about that. I'm not going to put it out for public consumption. Uh, but we have been married for 17 years, going on 18, and we've been together for 21.
Wow,
Uh,
that's pretty awesome, man.
well, it's a record for me.
Okay.
Uh, my next closest relationship was 7 years total. That's when I was out ripping and running.
Okay. So you you've made yourself a pretty good life.
Absolutely. Yeah. The life I live right now uh, bears no resemblance to what it was before or when I showed up here. It was a hot mess. Absolutely.
And this is why I love 12-step programs, because I hear stories like you, like mine. We come in with nothing. And if you just continue doing some work, your life actually gets better. You don't actually try too hard. It just,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it happens to you. When I got here, uh, my big aspiration was to not have to take out a loan to put tires on the car and to be able to buy my kid a bum sweatshirt. That was it. I was making $21,000 a year when I got here. So that's changed significantly in spite of me.
right. See, and those are the stories that I want our viewers to take note of, because you didn't want to finance your tires.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I couldn't afford them. That is the truth. Uh, nobody gets well by Thursday,
Right.
and so if you're in for the long haul and you trust this process, and stick with it, it gets better.
It does.
Yeah, in spite of me, it keeps getting better.
That's pretty awesome. Is there anything you would like to say to anybody out there struggling?
Give up. Give up sooner than later. A lot of people die, and I'm not trying to scare anybody because you can't scare an alcoholic or a drug addict into getting clean. But I have experienced your pain, absolutely, and you don't have to live that way any longer, but you do have to surrender. Uh, uh, Jack used to talk about the definition of surrender was going over to the winning side. I always thought that it was a humiliation, and in fact, it's joining the winners. So if you're in that kind of shape, come join the winners.
That's right. That's right. Now, there's another thing that a lot of people don't know. When you are involved in a 12-step program, there's always some kind of community, right? Fellowship.
Absolutely.
How would you say your fellowship is, coming out here to Tri Cities as opposed to where you were at?
Well, I mean, we left a community of 30 plus years, and that there's been some difficulties with that. But also, we know how to develop community, and that is both feet right in the middle
That's right.
of the program over here. Absolutely, it's the same way for everybody. If you're brand new, get in the middle. If you're brand new to the area, get in the middle. Uh, uh, I'll tell you. So I was about 10 years in, and I took on a coffee maker's position at what is now my home group, has been for 20 years. Uh, and the guy that I was taking over the position from, we were chatting, and he said, you're 10 years clean. Why are you doing this? Because I want to be 11 years clean. And for me, coffee maker is the perfect position. It's down at the meeting level. Uh, you're meeting people before the meeting. You're yakking with people after the meeting. That's my place. I've done area and district service, and I'm not cut out for that stuff. But it also puts you right square in the center of everything. You you are forced to be involved with people.
Yeah, I know when we moved up here from California, we left our community we had built. And down in California, where we lived, was right down the street from the treatment center. So we helped out a lot of people from the treatment center.
Sure.
So literally every day, every day, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, every 20 minutes, somebody was walking in the door.
Right.
And that was our community.
Yeah.
And we loved that. So when we moved up here, we had to start. But we also knew that there's a program anywhere you go.
Absolutely.
And so when we came here, we were slow going at first, and then the meetings down in California that we were used to going were a lot more live. Um, so we had to slow our pace down
Sure.
on every level once we moved out here. Um, but
Yeah, I get that.
but we
Understand that.
but we adapted to what our community is now, and now it's like I love my community, man.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Well, community is an integral part of survival. Anybody that is going to be aloof or go it alone, they typically are not going to make it. And if they do make it, they'll probably be uh, unhappy. That's one of the big benefits of 12-step programs is you got a bunch of people just like you
Mm-hmm.
that are willing to help out. Really important.
Yeah, and I think that's what probably for a person like myself, and I'll say for my wife as well. I'm I thought I was an introvert for like the longest time,
Yeah,
but it was just me, I guess, coming off, that fog being lifted,
sure.
and I started to realize that no, it wasn't. I wasn't an introvert. I just isolated.
Yeah.
Um,
We're the people that treat loneliness with isolation.
right, right. So that was a shocker to me.
Yeah,
Tiffany was like, I don't see where you think you're an introvert because you are far from that.
right.
And so, I mean, this community is we built is so awesome, man. So, I know we see each other around quite a bit. And this 12-step program, man, really works.
Yeah, yeah. You just got to jump in with both feet. You can't put just the toe in. Doesn't work that way. Yeah, you got to commit.
That's right. Tom, it was a pleasure interviewing you, man.
Right
Thank
on,
you for
Richie.
coming. Thank you for coming.
Glad you invited me. Thank you very much.
All right, guys, remember 12 step up, subscribe, like, share, follow. Um, Tune in next week and we'll have another special guest. Thank you, guys.